What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Elevating Your Potential podcast, where we enlighten middle school or high school student athletes about the realities of college sports. Today is a very, very special edition, special episode, because this is the very first one that we're doing. Typically, I'll be the one, I'm your host, Jeremiah Gaines. I will be the one performing the interviews and interviewing other student athletes. But today we have my brother, Tony Miller Jr. here, who's actually going to interview me so y'all can have kind of a glimpse at why the podcast started, why I'm here, and what I could possibly impart into potential student athletes. So without further ado, Tony Miller Jr.
Well, man, I just want to say thanks for having me. Thanks for thinking enough of me to actually open up this video with you in this podcast. Just to be honest, man, I'm really just so proud of you. And I want you just to continue, doing what it is that you do, man. And so, I got some prepared questions here for you, because I think it's really important that the people know who Jeremiah Gaines, who you are. I know who you are. My family knows who you are. But I think your people need to know exactly who you are. So these questions, they should be some softball questions, easy questions. But like I said, I really want the people to get to know who Jeremiah Gaines is. And so the first question really is, man, this who is Jeremiah Gaines?
And that's a great question. You said it's a softball, but I feel like a lot of people really have a hard time understanding who they are. But I would say, first of all, I was born and raised in Texas, the greatest state in the country. You might not agree with that, Tony, but I think it's the greatest state in the country for sure. I was raised to raised by two great parents. One taught me, she got me involved with church. She helped me kind of develop as a leader in the household. And then my father also helped me leadership as well. And with sports, he was definitely a major part of that. But if I have to describe me, there's pretty much 5 areas that I would talk about. Number one is my faith. Every decision that I make is in alignment with what Jesus Christ says about who I am and how he views me as a child of God. Number 2 is my family. I'm married to a beautiful wife. We're actually 16 weeks pregnant right now. And so that's the number 2 priority for me in my life, and making sure that the family that I live with, which is my wife and future child, and my family outside, my immediate family, is some people I hold to a high priority. Number 3 is sports. I've been playing sports since I was 5 years old, and I feel like I've learned so many valuable lessons through sports. I've met so many great people through sports that I'm just so thankful for what basketball, football, track, all those sports that I play, how they've helped me become mentally, physically disciplined and tough. That's number 3. Number 4 will have to be education. Unfortunately, I didn't really value my education really until I got to my master's program, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But education is so important because there's freedom that comes through education and understanding what the world around you is doing, and how for you to be able to personally know what you're reading, what you're learning, and not have someone else tell you that. And number 5 is why we're all here is my passion. My passion is to invest into people, and more specifically the younger generation, and let them know that they can do anything they put their mind to if they just have a little bit of guidance, a little hard work ethic, and the willingness to learn. And that's Jeremiah.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you, man. And I know you said a lot, but I mean, I still know that there's so much more to you. And I know as the podcast continues, people will continue to learn about you, and they'll learn all the those things that you mentioned about yourself and those qualities. And I'll say this, man, with you being the godfather of my son, one thing that that you mentioned is your faith, and that's something that I know you wear it on your sleeve. You eat, sleep, you breathe it. And I know sports is what kind of started our relationship, but I think our faith took the relationship to another level. And sports just keeps it interesting when we want to argue,
Right.
and just make different points, whether we're arguing ACC versus SEC, or Alabama, Clemson, whatever. And so thank you for that, man. And so you mentioned briefly about sports and how your dad introduced you to that. But with that introduction of sports and having been playing, since you were like what 5 years old, um, what did that introduction look like?
That's an interesting question. So my dad used to tell me when we were that when I was like young, maybe like 1 or 2, he would be laying down on the couch watching Sports Center. He would have me on his chest, and he'll be and we'll both be watching Sports Center, and I'll be engaged in what everything was going on. I thought that was interesting because to this day, as a 25-year-old, I still like to sit on the couch and watch sports. And so I think I was kind of groomed into watching sports. My dad played football at Oklahoma State back in what he would call the glory days or his heyday from the '80s, late '80s, early '90s. And then after that, he began coaching a little league organization. And through that, that's why I kind of got my introduction into football. So when I was 5 years old, I played 5 sports: football, basketball, soccer, track and field, and t-ball. And so just learning, I think soccer really helped me get my coordination going. My parents wanted me to get involved with that. Um, but I would say after that first year, doing 5 sports is a lot. And so my
Hmm.
parents came to me afterwards. She was like, "Okay, now 5, that's a little bit too much. It's hitting the pockets a little bit. So you're gonna have to stick with 2 after this year." And so that's when I really hit football and basketball. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I got introduced to not only sports, but the sports I ended up choosing to play later on.
Got you, got you. And so I take it, um, I take it you was a pretty good athlete if you were playing, 5 sports. And so um, next, I just want to know, when did you realize that you actually had a future past the high school level um, in athletics?
I think I found out when I was a freshman in high school. And so every little kid's dream, a lot of times, which is my dream as well, was to make it to the pros. I want to make it to the pros. I want to play, go to NBA or NFL. But didn't put together when I was younger. There was a step between high school and college. I mean, high school and the pros, and that was college. And so as I was my seventh, and eighth grade year, I was still like pros, pros, pros. I went to high school. Um, I was blessed to have the opportunity to play varsity as a freshman in football. And so I had a pretty good freshman season. And then after the season, I received my first letter from the University of Oregon. I was like, oh, I might have an opportunity to really play football on the collegiate level. And that's when I started to actually think about, okay, actually, let's college first and then the pros to help me out. So I think after I received that first letter, it kind of hit me like, man, if I keep progressing, getting better, I could possibly have a future and be able to have a a full ride scholarship to a college of any college that I wanted to.
Okay, all right, cool, man, cool. Um, So the fact that you're getting letters from D1 organizations, again, talks to just how great you were on the field and on the court. Um, and so, I think from what I know about you and it's our friendship that you had I would say a recruiting process that may not uh, have been what we see on TV, for the top 10 players in the country, but you still had a very robust recruiting process that hundreds of thousands of high school athletes don't experience because they're waiting for letters from NAIA schools or Division 3 schools, but you were pursued by Division 1 schools, and I'm not talking mid-major. I'm talking the Power 5 conferences. And so, if you would, man, just take us a little bit into what your recruiting process was, which I believe would probably a more of a realistic recruiting process for really great athletes
Mm-hmm.
who may not come from the biggest schools like the Allens, or So just kind of talk to me about what that looked like for you, and even given knowing that your dad was a Division 1 athlete,
Mm-hmm.
what was that experience for you, and even how did your dad help you through that process, given his experience having went to Oklahoma
Mm-hmm.
State?
So you brought up a good point, actually. So I didn't go to Allen. I went to a small school. Well, it's not. It's really a 5A school in Texas, which is the second largest division that we have. but it's a small city called Red Oak High School, and not very many people. So I'll tell you this on this fun fact. So Red Oak was so bad at one point, from 1987 to 2007 in football, our record was 50 and 150 overall. So we won
Woo!
25% of our games. So what we didn't have
A
very
lot
many.
of coaching changes,
A
I
lot
imagine.
of coaching changes. Yeah, it wasn't good at all. And so going into that, so in 2007, I was going to my seventh grade year. We finally started to be pretty good. We made some improvements. A couple players, like we had a player go to West Texas A&M. We had a player go to North Texas, and we had maybe 3 or 4 go to some D2, D3 universities. But when I became a freshman, I mentioned earlier that I received my offer, the first, not offer, but letter from Oregon. And so from the end of my freshman year, I was just starting to get letters from different schools. And what I want people to realize is that those letters don't really mean anything. Like, you're on people's radar, but until you start to make contact with coaches, you don't really know where you stand in the recruiting process. And so I was getting all these letters. I'm like, hey, this is cool and everything. And I'm getting, like, you get the letters from like Oregon, from SMU, North Texas, Alabama, USC, but you're like, are they actually interested in me? And so that happened freshman year. That happened through sophomore year. And then the spring of my sophomore year, I began to start going to different camps. And so I believe I went to 5 camps. And for me personally, I was very nervous when I went to camps because I was like, I have to stand out in front of thousands of people that are here. And it's really just in t-shirts and shorts. So how am I going to impress a college scout when there's thousands of us here? And so I went to different camps, went to a couple different what they call um, like junior days or unofficial visits. So I went to some schools like Oklahoma, Texas A&M, just to go there and see what the university. I mean, see what the university was like. And then going into my junior football season, and junior year for a lot of people is a big year because this is when colleges can start talking to you. And my coach, the first day of practice, said something that I'll never forget and that I want to say to everyone listening. He told me, don't worry about recruitment. Don't worry about any of that. You just focus on doing your job well for the team and being the best player you can every single day, and the colleges will come. And with him saying that, I wasn't stressed about the recruiting process and getting recruited. But before I even had a chance to get uneasy or pressed, he gave me a sense of relief that, okay, we got you. We know this is a thing. He acknowledged that this was something that people think about. So I'm going to hit it head on so we can move on with the season. And that gave me so much relief and so much release from stress that I ended up having a pretty good year that year. The University of Texas came to some games to see me. And that's a whole nother story with recruitment. I thought I was going to go to UT. If you asked me a long time ago what school I would go to as a sophomore, junior, I thought it was University of Texas. My dad had a good relationship with the coach. I had a good relationship with the coach, but I never received a formal offer because I was 6'3". They wanted a tight end who was 6'3". I mean, who was 6'5" or 6'6". And so they came to some games. And so I went through my junior season. And right at the end, maybe around February in the spring, was when I received my first scholarship offer from TCU. And so,
TCU, you mean the
yeah,
rival, one of the rivals
yeah,
of SMU,
yeah.
the Purple Horn Frogs, huh?
I received my first offer from TCU. And to be honest, I was this close to committing to TCU. The only reason why I didn't was because I felt so. I'm a Sagittarius for those. I was born in November for those who don't know, late November. And so one thing they tell you is that you don't like being told what to do. And that is one thing, Tony, I'm sure you know, I do not like being told what to do from anyone. My wife, she gets away with a little bit more than most people, but I don't like being told what to do. And so they were trying to pressure me into making a decision. And I decided to move on and choose somewhere else to go.
Got you. Thank you. And so ultimately, we know that you ultimately chose to commit and sign with the Southern Methodist University Mustangs, which obviously is where we met and our friendship began. But I've asked you this before. I know the answer, but I think it's important for you to share this. Why, with all the Division I schools that you had SEC offers, you had some Big 12 offers, you had some Big 10 offers, and I believe you even had some ACC offers, and I think all the Power 5, you had at least one Power 5 offer from each of those schools, but you chose not to go the Power 5 route. You chose to go to SMU. So can you kind of, take me through, ultimately, why did you choose to become a football player at SMU?
That's a great question. When I made the decision to go to SMU, a lot of people were looking at me crazy, like, why in the world would you choose SMU? So number one, I mean, I talked about it earlier. My faith was a big part of that. I feel like that was where the Lord was leading me. But for more tangible reasons, I feel that number one, it was close to home. And so I was actually talking to a college scout from another university, and they were like, "Hey, I know you want to stay close to home. I know you want to be with your brother. You have a close relationship with him and your family." So that school was close to where Red Oak was at the time as well. And he was like, "You should come to this school." And so the funny thing was when he said that, I was like, "You are so right." And so instead of choosing their university, I ended up choosing SMU because I wanted to stay close to home. That was number one. Because my other options that I went to was Washington State, Wake Forest, North Texas, and I believe Texas Tech. And all those were, besides North Texas, were 7+ hours away from where I was. And so I wanted to stay close to home. The academics were great. At SMU, I didn't really know what that meant at the time, but it sounded good. The academics at SMU, they were like, "Oh, it's a great school." Okay, I believe
Yeah.
you. It's a great
Hmm.
school. Um, and then the third one was because I thought that I wanted to pursue theology in college, but after coming on campus, I decided to go another route. But those were the three big reasons why.
Got you, man. Thank you. So staying on SMU, man, I want to know, what was your experience like at SMU, and I want to hear it from the perspective of as a student,
Mm-hmm.
but also as a student athlete, because I think a lot of times um, society and those that don't work with college athletes every day, um, they just see one part of that life. And they see game day, whether it's college football or college basketball, whatever those days are, for the other sports. So I want to hear, breaking down the compound word of student athlete. I want to hear about what your experience was like, and was it the experience that you expected, or and even if it was the experience that you were sold on, that maybe even helped lead you to committing there, given again to the closeness of home.
I'm gonna hit about the expectation. So unfortunately, when I transitioned to school, my only expectation was to play good for 4 years and go to the NFL. That was the only expectation I had going into it. And so there, I didn't really have anything else to kind of shape what I wanted my experience to be. But the experience was filled with a lot of great times, a lot of great moments, with a lot of great people. But it was also filled with some times that I wasn't depressed, but it was very difficult um, to go through. And so I will say this: my first week, so my first month was great. I had a few classes that I took in the summer before school started, and we had workouts. And so thankfully, this is for anyone who's going to school soon or will be going to school in the next year or so. Make sure that before you go to campus, that you do your workouts before, because it will be, you want to make a good first impression when you get there. So the first July, thankfully, I started working out beforehand. So football wise was good. Made good grades in my classes because a lot of times summer classes are a lot easier. But in August, in football, there's called train. It's a training camp essentially. And to be honest with you, that was the first time I realized I did not want to go to the NFL because I saw the itinerary for the first day. Said wake up call was 4:30 in the morning. I was
Ooh,
like, whoa,
where they do that at?
what am I getting myself into? And not only that, the we didn't get back to the hotel till 10 p.m.
Mm.
And so I was like, we're gonna do this for how many weeks? 3 weeks? And so I know if this is college, the NFL has to be way worse than this. And so that's when I started to really realize that, man, this is not what I want to do long term. And so those 3 weeks were very tough. And at the time, I started dating my wife at the time. And so balancing a long distance relationship, balancing school, academics was very tough for me that first fall semester. Um, Me and my wife now, girlfriend then, we got into it the first day of school. And we know as young people, when we have relationship issues, it kind of floods into other parts of our life as well. So my grade went down from a 4.0 in the summer to like a 2.4 in the fall. On the football field, I was terrible. I played tight end. I played receiver here my first couple years, and I probably dropped more passes than I caught throughout my whole first semester because my mind was not like I was not handling adversity well. And so that first semester was very tough. But after I went home for spring break, after I had some time to kind of recalibrate, after I talked to some friends, and really dove more into my spiritual life, I started to realize that I started to create these systems to overcome um, adversity in the future.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And so piggybacking off of that, because I want to dive into your life as a student athlete a little bit.
Mhm.
And for me, man, leadership and just life skills, different things like that, is very important to me. And my history with the University of Memphis football team during my my graduate years. And so my question for you is, do you feel that, like, did the athletic department give you what you needed to succeed um, outside of athletics, or did you get did you get that from other people or resources or places? What do you think and say?
I think academically, they provided resources, but you have to ask for those resources. So they're available to you, but it's upon you to ask and inquire more about the academic resources. Now it's like the social, like different organizations on campus or getting internships. I think that's an area where specifically my athletic department could have done a better job at while I was here, because there was opportunities available I just didn't know about. And so for any student athlete that's out there, there are anything that you want to accomplish while you're on campus, whether it be a leader of an organization, whether it's set yourself up for the future job wise, there are resources, but you will probably have to ask around, ask your academic advisor, who's going to talk to you at least once a semester academically, but they also have different people that they know on campus that can assist you and put you in the right position. Because a lot of times athletic departments, their job is to keep you, number one, academically, to keep you eligible so you can play. And number two, make sure you are providing a great service to them on the field, because they have a job to do as well. And sometimes the other things that you need as a student athlete and as a future person who's going to be in the workforce, it just slips their mind. They're not intentionally doing it, but it slips their mind. So you have to be an advocate for yourself and go out and ask those different questions.
Okay, all right. Good ones. So what this I'll do this because this will be a shorter one. Who is your most hated college football rival during your playing days?
Oh, I got a lot of them.
I know,
My
and I don't think I've ever asked you that question. Because I
Ooh.
can think of specific games, I can think of specific beatdowns that you took from certain teams that reside in the 901 area code. But I just want to hear from you because I don't
Right.
think you ever told me who's your most hated college football rival
Yeah.
that you faced.
Because college rivals are huge. Like high school rivals are one thing, but college rivals it's a whole different level. Like you have thousands of people in a fan base going head to head with each other. And so I say for me personally, because you have TCU, you have North Texas, you have Houston, Memphis is one as well. I would probably have to say the University of Houston, though. Um, I think that's the one school that, because to be a rival, both teams have to win. And so with TCU got us more times than not. Actually, all 4 years I was here, they got us. Um, North Texas, it was kind of reverse. SMU, we kind of beat North Texas most of the time. But with Houston, there were times where it's been back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I think with Houston, that is where the most passion comes from. They kind of disrespected us when I was a senior. Was a senior or junior? When I was a junior as well, by putting some videos up on social media. So that didn't sit well in the locker room. So I think the University of Houston will have to be it.
Okay, okay. And I think you make a great point when you talk about the importance of the back and forth and the winning. Because if you dare say Memphis is a rival, I'd have to argue and say, the last 6 times has resulted, not so well.
We didn't have to bring that up.
Hey,
We didn't have
but
to bring that up.
I'm a Tiger, so I'm always go Tigers go. And so we're not talking ACC versus SEC, we're talking SMU and Memphis Tigers, and so I appreciate that, man. So another question on a happier note for you would be, what was your most memorable college football moment?
Oh, it have to be when we beat the University of Houston when they were ranked. They were at the time they're number 11 in the country. No, well they were six, but then they lost a week before they played us and dropped. And then so they were number 11 going into it. And I actually had a teammate that I played high school football with that played on that team as well. And so I had a little bragging rights after we beat them. That was my senior year. So that was the first time that we beat a ranked team while I was here at SMU, and that was my first time being a part of a field storming experience because we were home. So that was just a great. That had to be on the field. That had to be the greatest experience I've ever gone
Gotcha. And I think it's fitting that you identify Houston as a
through.
rival and then one of your
Yep.
greatest, because I was at the game. I was at the game. I think it was my father-in-law's birthday. They visited Ellie and I, and we went to the game, and y'all were hitting on all cylinders. And I can think of a TCU game as well. Y'all were hitting on all cylinders as well. And so that Houston game was definitely a great experience. And so I got two more questions for you, just as it pertains to you being our college football related specifically. And I guess the first one would be the easier one is, given your experiences, given what you know now, compared to what you knew then, would you do it all again?
I would do it again. I definitely would. Like I said earlier, we haven't gotten to some of the. It was definitely challenging with the hours being away from my family. Even though it was only 30 minutes, it was still there. And also, I haven't talked about this before, but high school football, college football is a lot different. And I'll wrap this all up and why I say that. High school football, I played with friends that I was with from the time I was 10, 11 years old, all the way up through till I was 18. And so that's 8 years of um, memories and experiences that I've had with these people. And then when I go to college, I'm starting all over again, fresh. And so I'm having to get involved to a new environment, having to meet new people, having to learn a new system. And so, with that being said, I kind of lost the love for the game of football because it was so much media scrutiny, a lot more pressure involved, and it wasn't the game I grew up loving. And so that's really what made it tough to get through the 4 years was because I didn't have the passion for it anymore. And I would like try like after the season, I'd be like, man, I'm ready for the season to get back started. And every single time it just felt like, man, it's just not what it was cracked up to be. And so anyone that's out there, I'm not trying to discourage you from going to pursue your goals and dreams, but just know it might be a little bit different. And you have to find a way to keep the joy. I didn't have a system to keep the joy for me. I didn't really know exactly how to find a little kid in me again that I used to love going outside playing football with my fellas or football with my dad and brother. So I would say make sure that you always keep the joy of the game because that's what made my college student athlete experience. That's what made it so tough for me.
Thank you for sharing. And I'll ask this question just as a follow up. Is given to what you were saying, it seems like the direction of just kind of like keeping the fun and keeping the joy in it.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that one of the other major differences between high school and college football is that high school, yes, it's fun and you want to win, right? But in football, would you say that college football is more of a business than just, hey, we're just out here having fun? Just given some of the things that you talked about with coaches and the pressure to win and donors and athletic directors and stakeholders.
Right. It's really only a business.
Mm.
Everything. I mean, I hate to put it that way, but that's what it is. Like it's 95% of it is straight business,
Hmm.
and so it's really like you have a full-time job. I know there's been a lot of debate whether they should be student athletes should be paid or not, but the amount of money, the amount of work you put in is over 40 hours in a particular week that you're doing. And so all the money, the NCAA makes $1 billion. I know that some universities, if when they open up on Saturdays, I mean, we're doing this during COVID, so it won't be packed fans this coming fall. Um, but prior to COVID, when they opened up, they made $7 million for the university. 7 million on one day. And so you have to produce a product to make sure that you keep that $7 million coming in to make sure that that the program gets what they need and that the university keeps continuing to get that $7 million. So yeah, it's 100% of business. In high school, you can go 0-10 for 5 years straight, and you won't get fired because guess what? That coach is teaching the class, and so academics is more prevalent than when you're a coach in college.
Hmm. Gotcha. You make a great point, and you actually led right into my last question. And before we get there, you talked about the money that is brought in from these programs, and just looking at just the American athletic conference in which SMU was a part of. As far as revenue, in 2018, you're looking at all the conferences, just from from the football standpoint. They brought in $406 million. That's the revenue, whether you're talking student fees, the money that the universities give to them, other revenue, ticket sales, donor contributions, conference affiliations, corporate sponsorships, advertising, licensing, different things like that. And if you look at the FBS as a whole, you're looking at, a $8.5 billion,
Yeah.
industry. And yeah, and the AAC is really, I would argue, and I think without much debate from anyone else in the country, is the next best, and sometimes in some years, the fifth best, but it's definitely the sixth
Right.
best conference from a standpoint of competition because of, the Houstons, the Memphis, the Navies, the Temples on a given year, the SMUs, in a given year, given the success that they had last year. And so it's definitely a business. And so with that, and you brought it up, and I was going to ask it as my last question. Do you feel that student athletes should be compensated for their contributions as student athletes?
That's another great question because I've gone back and forth. On the surface, I feel like they should get paid more because they don't have the opportunity to go out and get internships and jobs and stuff like other people on campus would. So if you look at someone who is who gets an art scholarship or is in like the school of dance, they can have a full scholarship, but they can also they can get compensated and have internships and different things like that. Or an engineering major or a business major, they get scholarships. So a lot of people say you have a full ride, you have academic advisors helping you out and people to support you. Well, these other students do too, but we don't have the opportunity to go out there and go get gainful employment. That's number one. Number two is we're actually going out and producing a service, as I've been saying this whole time, and bringing more notoriety to the campus. So if SMU plays on CBS, or the University of Texas volleyball team plays on ESPN News, those are people who are watching the game saying, oh, wow, this University of Texas. Let me look into the school. And so you're even bringing in more revenue than just what's happening there. Like you're getting more eyes on the school if you have a good program. Even if you don't have a good program, if you're playing on TV, you're still bringing in money. The conferences bring in money from TV revenue as well. So you should do this. So you should have an income of that sort. But I will say on the flip side, student athletes do have stipend checks currently. And so at SMU, we receive somewhere between 1,500 to 1,800 a month. That should be enough for a student athlete to, well, most student athletes to survive. I know some people have to help their parents out back at home and different things like that. But I feel like we also can manage our money in a better way to make sure that we are, until we get to the point to where we do get that money or getting compensated, we can manage our money better now through the stipend checks that are available currently to us.
Got you. Thank you. And that stipend check, it varies from university to university
Yep.
as well. I know we could dive into that
Yeah, for
minutia,
sure.
because in full transparency, when I was in college and I went to a Division II school who didn't have a football team, and I was one. I was very avid about that college athletes, period, should not get paid because they were getting a free education and things like that. And it took, a fellow freshman who was, he was supposed to be the star point guard coming in the freshman class, and we became friends. And I talked to him, and then, I'm like, hey man, this is why. And he's like, man, all I got is a meal plan, or all I'm getting is housing, so I'm not really getting a full ride or anything like that. And then I had another experience, working at Memphis and living with those guys, as freshmen, and seeing what they were doing and serving as athletic academic advisor for those guys, and hearing about those struggles. And I know their stipends was lower
Right.
than what SMU's was. And that's really that Memphis, I guess you can say, immersion. My life of those 2 years really changed my life, or perspective on whether student athletes should get paid. And then you've seen some of the star players come out saying, hey, we ain't got food to eat. We're doing this, doing that. And so I really appreciate your transparency and even being able to look at it, from the argument on both
Right.
sides.
You actually,
Uh,
sorry, Tony, before you actually raised a good point a second ago. I didn't even think about it from this perspective that my freshman and sophomore year, I had to stay on campus for 2 years.
and
And
so you
so
weren't probably getting a stipend.
I didn't get any stipend. I got the housing, the middle, of course, it's full ride scholarship to they paid
Yeah.
for my tuition. But on Sundays at 2 o'clock, cafeteria closed. What we gonna eat after 2 o'clock on Sunday?
Like I said, man, we can dive
Right,
into that. That's another, that's another show
right.
for
Yeah,
you on
it
another
is.
day,
Yeah.
because I can go in on that. And it's just amazing to see, to your point, all the notoriety that student athletes, and I'm not trying to take away from golf and swimming and things, because there are those teams that are great, that have great teams, like the Midwest colleges with hockey and the lacrosse that are on
Right,
TV on ESPN. They're not bringing the money in the way that football and basketball are, but like you said, they're bringing in money, they're bringing odds. People are applying. Research has been done that shows that successful teams, when they win, it helps with academic. It helps with academic quality of applicants, and the
right.
quantity of applicants, and you winning the national championship in football or basketball, and what it does to your applications. And so there is a relationship there, and I get that. And so even going with that, it's like, hey, you don't get that without those student athletes. And so, as you said, we're in the midst of COVID-19. We're seeing how some students are understanding, hey, they don't care about me, or wait a minute, I want to make sure that they do care about me, whether it's the students at the Pac-12 or the Big Ten, making a list of demands. And so again, that's another conversation for another
Yeah.
day, but I really do appreciate you sharing that. So we're going to jump a little bit away from college football, or from your experience per se. And I just want to learn, because you mentioned her a little earlier, but I want to know, how did you meet? How did you and Mrs. Allie Gaines, how did the two of you meet? How did that relationship begin?
So funny story. So first of all, my wife is a military kid, and that's gonna show up a little bit later. So basically, we were in high school. We had our a class together when we were seniors, and so we were like we kind of knew each other. We talked a little bit, but neither one of us were really trying to like start a relationship. I was about to go off to college. She was doing her own thing with her friends, and so nothing really happened. And so actually, she made the first move. We were in class one day, and these are for all those high school student athletes right now who like puppy love. And so basically, she came to me one day, um, her and her friend, and she was like, "Yeah, I think Jeremiah's cute." And I thought, because her friends used to always bash me, because I used to wear different colored socks and shoes, and I didn't match very often. And so I was one of those type. I just rocked to the beat of my own music. And so she said, "I'm like, yeah, you just playing, whatever, you joking." And so she was like, "No, I'm serious." And so when she said that, I was like, "Oh, this is the first time I actually think, like, oh, okay, I see you." I mean, I thought she looked good, of course. I mean, she's my wife now. And so after she made that statement, we just kind of started texting back and forth. And then what really got me was I heard her sing for the first time, and I was like, "Man, this girl can sing for real." She don't like singing for me now most days, but that was part of the reason why I kind of.
So she couldn't sing. She
She
could
couldn't
sing.
sing. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. She could sing.
She
She
couldn't sing.
can,
She could
not could.
sing.
She could and can
She
sing.
could sing. Okay,
Yes, yes.
got you,
And once
got you.
I remember the song to this day. It was "Weak" by SWV. And for
And
those who
she had
don't
you weak
know,
to your and she had you weak to your knees, huh?
yes, yes, yes. When she sang "Weak," because "Weak" it has three different people singing, and the third one is the one who's the highest. And so she did the third person. I'm like, oh, she can really sing.
She could
So
sing.
she can sing for sure. And so after that, we just started talking, and then I like to tell people since that day, we haven't stopped talking since. Talked every day for the last 7 years.
Well, amen, amen to that, brother. And as you said earlier, man, y'all are, you know, the Lord has blessed y'all to be expecting a little one, and so,
Mm-hmm.
we hope and pray that God continues to bless that union, man. And so, we want to shift gears a little bit, and again, thank you for just taking us inside, that area of your life. And so, you mentioned education being important to you, and you having a master's degree. So, a lot of times with college athletes, it's usually, for those that don't go pro,
Mm-hmm.
and they finish, they get the bachelor's, and that's kind of, they're done. Or, there may be some that have, they want to be coaches, which kind of leads you to being a teacher. And you have to have the master's degree to do certain things, or to get paid to do this, or, you get an MBA because you get a business degree or whatever. Um, but so what was it for you, man? What made you pursue a master's degree?
Honestly, I did not want to get my master's when I initially came to school. Like I said earlier, I did not put academics super high on my list. When I was in high school, I did just enough to get to where my parents didn't wasn't on my back about my grades, and the same thing all the way through college. But after I finished my last senior season, I was reflecting. I'm like, man, what am I going to do now? So my dad, he's been a coach and a teacher for the last 30 years now. And I was like, I mean, I could do that. I could always go back and do that, but I don't want to just do something just because my dad has done it or it just seems like the next logical step. I kind of want to do something a little bit different. And so God gave me, um, sent someone my way who I had no idea would offer me a position to be a graduate assistant for her. Her name is Domita Fleming. And to this day, I'm very thankful for her. Because without her, I would not have the opportunity. I would not have had the funds or the resources to get a master's degree. And so when she came to me in the spring of my senior year, right before I'm about to graduate and to go into the real world, I had no idea what I was going to do. She said, "Hey, I need a graduate assistant." It was still here at SMU on campus, and she just actually got promoted. And so it's basically going to be her assistant helping her with whatever project she needed. And so she worked so hard to make sure that not only did I get free tuition, but that I got free housing and a meal plan and also got paid, that I'm forever thankful for that. Um, but the master's degree, I was stuck between two things. My undergrad degree was in sport management, and I could get my master's in sport management, or I could have gotten it in educational leadership. And so I was talking to another one of my mentors. We'll get into mentors a little bit later. Tony's one of my mentors for those of y'all who are listening. That's why he's doing this. He's always impacted me so much. But back on track, to get back on track, my mentor was like, okay, you could get your master's in sport management, but you already have your undergrad in that. So how about you do educational leadership? And I was like, okay, I'll try it. I don't really know much about education. I don't know much about this master's program, but why not? Seems like especially something I can do for the next 2 years. And so I might get to this a little bit later, but I never would have guessed how much educational leadership would have changed my life and how much that program would have impacted me. So really, to answer your question simply, it was mentors helping me move to that next step and pushing me towards doing my master's degree, and not really my internal um, thought or motivation to do so.
Got you. And yeah, man, Jamita Fleming, shout out to Jay Flem,
Yeah,
Jay
she
Fleming
listening to this.
Flem.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's A1 steak sauce, man.
she
So
is.
so yeah, man, I'm glad that y'all able to cross paths and she looked out for you the way she did. And allowed you to get this pursue this degree, put this master's degree in your heart, man. And so now, man, we're gonna turn to the book, man. And so as you mentioned, um, you know, you just wrote the book. You got the LLC out there. And so the book, it's elevating your potential. A guide for student athletes transitioning to college sports. And I think it's a very timely book. And when I say timely, I'm not speaking in the time of COVID, but I think it's timely for because student athletes are always transitioning from high school to college every year. And there's a lot of things that they don't know, and you covered some of those things, and you kind of give some tips throughout our interview. And so I just want to know, in a nutshell, in your own words, to be able to, just tell me, I'm gonna explain, what is the essence of the book? Like, obviously, it's to help, student athletes transition from high school to college. And I don't know if there's really any other books out there like this, which is why I say, the timing of it is, it's great. But what is the essence of the book?
The essence of the book is to develop the whole student athlete. And so, what I mean by that is a lot of times we're prepared athletically for school. Coaches make sure that we're ready athletically. For the most part, we're ready academically for school. But there are some areas that we do not think about, like character development. We don't think about, especially in high school, how our character and how the way we handle stress and how we handle our money actually impacts not only us in the moment, but moving forward. And so the heart of the book came from my parents. Like you said, my dad went to Oklahoma State, and he helped me with the process. He helped me with the recruiting process and how to talk to coaches. But there were some things that if I would have known earlier when I transitioned to college, that I would have been in a better situation. I wasn't behind, but I also don't think I put myself in the best position possible um, to succeed when I got to college. And so the essence of the book is really to help student athletes think about things they had never thought about before. So, like the first chapter, I give a little preview, is talking about why do you actually want to go to college? Do you want to go because your parents taught you? Because your
Hmm.
parents or grandparents told you? Do you want to go because you want to play professional sports? Do you want to go because it'll set you up for your future career? Because understanding which one of those options you choose will impact which college you go to, number one, and what you study while you're there. If you're going because you want to go to the pros, your thought process needs to be, I need to go to a system or a place that's going to have me play earlier. If I'm going for
Hmm.
academics, I need to go to a highly prestigious school that has what degree program I want to choose. and that will steer direct your decision making in going to college.
Got you. Got you. That makes sense. Thank you. So that's kind of the essence of the book. And so you just finished it. You just released it. So why, or is the why of the book wrapped into the essence of the book?
It is wrapped into it, but it's a little bit more. So my brother's actually a Division I basketball player now, and there were some things when he was getting recruited. I just finished my undergrad career in college, and so I didn't really have the mind to really wrap around what my experience was and how to give like tangible tips to help someone go through what I just went through. And so my master's program helped me with that to put in context like why certain things happened. Why did I operate in the way I operated? Why did I handle this situation the way I handled it? And so I wanted to really write this as I wanted to be a big brother to my brother as he was getting recruited in written form, if that makes sense. I couldn't be the big brother I wanted to and give him all the tips I wanted at the time because I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I wrote
Mm-hmm.
this for him. And I also wrote it for that student athlete who doesn't have direction or that parent who doesn't know so that you're not hoodwinked or you're not confused and don't know what direction or how to take your recruitment, athletics, academics, and social, spiritual life and handle all those things at one time. And for number three, I want to write this as my future son or daughter, whichever one God blesses us with. If I'm not here, I want them to have a resource if they choose to play sports that will guide them into making the right decision for their college and not a decision that will hurt them instead of benefit them like it should. So those three layers are really why I wrote it. And to act like a big brother, cousin, um, father, grandfather to somebody who doesn't know the system and wants to grow in a lot of different areas while they're going through that process.
Mm-hmm. Got you, man. And and two of those points speak to me because, as you know, my sister, my younger sister, because we have that in common. We're the big brothers to younger student athletes, and so I kind of helped her navigate through her process. And my dad was a Division I baseball player, and so, but I think to the final point of you saying for your children, for you to have, and I think you talk about having a guide, but I think more importantly, to dive a little deeper into them having a guide. Not only is it a guide because Joe Blow can write a book and publish something online and it be a guide, but that guide is coming from their dad. It's coming from your voice. So it's not just some author who they'll never meet, but the words in this book is from dad. And this is the advice that dad would actually give to me. And so I think, with you saying that, it takes it to a different level because it's not just a guide. It's literally, this is what you would say to them if you were here with them in the moment, in the event, as you said, if something happens and you're not with them. And so I think that's just really, I think that's really powerful, man. So thank
You
you
hit
for
that.
that.
Yeah, you hit that right in the head, T. And something I would add about the book is that I wanted to write it in a way to where it's very personal. Personal, it's very personal to where I gave my personal experiences. Like some of all these stories are true that I'm giving at the beginning of different sections. Of course, I didn't give names in all of them. Like if something bad happened to somebody, I didn't give their name. But I want to be personal, but I also wanted there to be tangible steps. A lot of books that I read give like these very abstract thoughts and they don't really break it down. And so I wanted to really break down, I want to provide you with the story to kind of introduce it. Then I wanted to make it relevant to you as a student athlete. And then I wanted to give you tangible steps on how to either overcome, how to set yourself up better, or actually move in these certain situations and areas that I didn't really know how to operate myself.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. That's good stuff. And I know that these students, my men, their parents, they're going to thank you for it because you're going to have, there's a lot of student athletes out there whose parents, weren't your parents, or my parent who had the experience of getting recruited or doing different things like that. And so kind of when they approach the college admissions process, it's something brand new. And so the college recruitment process from an athletic standpoint may be brand new to them. And so this can serve and help as a guide to them as well. And so diving again into a little bit more into the book, you reference the Lord and the scriptures a lot in your book. And so I want to ask, how did your faith, impact your will um, while you were in school?
Oh, that was the only way, honestly, to where I could get up in the morning sometimes. Because we talked about my athletic struggles, we talked about my academic and my social struggles, and I became a part of a group called FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, while I was on campus, and that kind of gave me a group to be around to where I can talk about my vulnerabilities. Because a lot of times as student athletes, we don't have that space to be vulnerable because we always got to be on, we always got to be ready, we always have to be mentally tough. But FCA kind of gave me a space to where other people who are going through the same issues and struggles I was going through, or even it doesn't have to be issues or struggles, it could be great things that we went through the last week, and give them praise reports. That kind of gave me a group or system to help me. And I think to go a little bit deeper into that, while I was in that group, I realized that the Bible was not just a lot of pages of like these lofty goals or these lofty things that are not attainable. Like everything is a practical step, a practical tip that God wants us, or the writer wants us to understand that we can actually use in our everyday life. And so in the book, I'm giving little nuggets of the book right now. It talks about how you should go into a situation. And so in the Bible, it talks about when you go to a table, when you go to a feast or a celebration, don't automatically go to the head of the table and sit down.
Mm-hmm,
Wait,
mm-hmm.
wait for the person or the person of honor to bring you up. So you sit at the lowly table and have them elevate you. So what does that mean? Why is that tangible? So for every student athlete out there, when you go into your new environment, don't go in there thinking you are the stuff because you are all American, all state, all district. No, you go in there, you be humble, you have your head down, you work hard, and let your coaches and your fellow student athletes elevate you through giving you praise or a higher position. You don't do it yourself. And so understanding that the Bible was full of those type of instances was huge for me.
Got you, man. Thank you, man. You talking on some good stuff, man. And I hope the people that's listening to our conversation, man, I hope they take heed and they put these nuggets in their pocket, man. And um, this is more of a fun question for you. What chapter are you most looking forward to the people reading?
Yeah, I think I alluded to it earlier. The biggest one is the mentorship chapter. The mentorship chapter is actually the last chapter of the book, and I believe it's the longest. The reason why it was so like I was emotional several times while I was writing the mentorship chapter because my life was shaped and developed through mentorship, starting with my parents, going to you, going to Jomita. If it wasn't for the mentors or the people who invested into my life, I would not be here on the Zoom call or have written a book before. And so that was the most fun. That was the most engaging and honestly the easiest to write because it was so real to me. And so in that chapter, I talk about why mentors are important. I talk about how to get a mentor and find the right one and how you should operate when you find a mentor. And so all those things I think are super important to understanding um, kind of why that relationship is established, and you need somebody else to move forward in your life. You have to have other people.
Hmm. That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. Um, and I think a lot of people they don't realize until whether they read your chapter or if there's another book or an article or something that they see on TV. I don't think a lot of people think about the mentors in their lives or the lack of mentors. And so I know you talk about how you go in and you explain, really even how to use a mentor. Because there's some people who have mentors but don't know how to use
Right.
those mentors, what the purpose of those mentors are, and what a good relationship looks like, with the mentor, man. And so I know that'll be a powerful chapter. And so you said that was really the easiest chapter for you to write. But what was the most difficult chapter for you to write? And if you don't mind, just share with me, why was it the most difficult chapter for you to write?
Yeah, that's a pretty easy one for me as well. And it is actually I have a chapter there about the portal. For those who don't know, the transfer portal is now you are able to transfer to another university, and you go into more detail. The chapter goes into detail about what that is. But it was hard for me. Honestly, I didn't want to put the chapter in there because I don't think that someone's intention when they go to college should be to transfer. I think that when you go to a school, you should have your mind set on this is where I'm gonna go, and this is where I'm staying my whole 4 or 5 years. But I felt like it was important to write because number one is relevant to the landscape that's in college sports right now. I think it would have taken some off of the reliability of the book. And number two, I think it's kind of like slavery in a way. Like we don't want to reminisce on it, but we have to understand where we came from to understand where we are. And so I'm not saying it's the same thing, but I'm saying when I came up, we didn't have a transfer portal. If you transfer, you have to sit out a year. And so for student athletes to have the power to transfer when they want to is a powerful thing. And so I think that those two reasons are why I put it in, but it was difficult to write because our desire is not to transfer when we get there.
Thank you. And I mean, and also you weren't a student athlete that transferred,
Right?
you know.
Right.
So you spoke on that and you talked about your experience. It didn't exist, but I think the transfer portal is maybe 2 years old, maybe
Maybe, yeah.
three,
Yeah, two or
maybe,
three. Yeah.
you know. And so there's a lot of student athletes that you played with, and some that came after you. So it's really, if it's 3 years old, you're looking at current juniors, rising juniors. So there are a lot of student athletes that you know didn't have that transfer portal experience. And I am an advocate of the transfer portal. Um, and so, man, really, this is gonna be my last question that I have for you. That's, I guess you can say, it's business, and I'm trying to learn, about why you wrote the book and different things like that. But thinking about it, on this last question, I think it's an important question to ask. And I haven't asked you this question yet, but I mean, you got the book, you got the LLC. I mean, you got the trainings and different things like that. So why do a podcast? I mean, you got all those other things. You're able to communicate with people and, get the message out there and clarify the message, drive the message home. I mean, why do a podcast?
Yeah. I think that's a good question because the reason why I think I started, not I think, the reason why I started the podcast was because as powerful as I think the book can be, it still has not hit on the limitless experiences of all student athletes. Like, I'm a Division I player. When I was doing the book, I talked to um, students who was Division I on partial scholarships. I talked to Division III students. I talked to JUCO students. I talked to different students, but I feel like the podcast is a way for me to personally talk to and get the message out about Division I athletes and other sports. Because I play football, but there's basketball, volleyball, lacrosse. There's 19, 20 other sports. D2 student athletes, D3 student athletes, junior college, NAIA. Um, and so I wanted to get all these experiences and kind of bring it and give it out to the masses so that each person can identify with somebody in their own sport. So that's from the student athlete perspective. From the coach's perspective, there's a lot of times that coaches bring in other student athletes to kind of talk to their student athletes to help them and kind of get them a picture on what to expect. I think that this podcast is a way to where if they don't want to bring anybody else in, either because of COVID or they cost money, they can show them this podcast, and they'll see, hey, look at this podcast and this student athlete's experience that you could possibly have as well. So I think those are the two main reasons why. Um, go a little bit deeper. I think what makes this podcast different, what will make this podcast different than other podcasts, is that there will be, I don't want to call it a study guide, but there will be like a sheet that coaches, parents, and student athletes, if they want to or choose to go through, there will be a sheet of questions or tips that the student athlete, whoever speaker, whoever I'm interviewing, they can go back and go through this guide or this sheet to kind of see, okay, where's my mindset at? And so it kind of gives free, what's the word I'm looking for? Free content out in a guide that the book doesn't hit on, because there's only so much you can put in a book to hit a student athlete. But with the podcast, I can talk to every student athlete from every school and every sport to give different experiences.
Got you. Got you. Thank you, man. Thank you. And so now we're gonna change gears a little bit, and we're gonna have a little bit of fun as we get ready to
Okay.
close this out, man. And so I'm gonna throw this out here because it's still crazy to me, and I want you to talk about it, man.
Okay. I don't know where you going.
Because I still don't believe it, and I don't want this to be the way it is before you die.
Oh, I know. I
Uh,
already know where it's going.
but
I already know.
uh,
I know now.
and I know I won't be the only one that feels this way. But you have never in your life, never have you ever, being the 6'3", 235 pound, specimen that you are, never ate a hamburger. Now, two things. One, you missing out on one of God's gifts. Um, and two, I just don't understand how you could do that, especially living in Texas with Whataburger there. And so talk to me, man. Explain, how is that even possible, man? And I mean, and is there even a chance that Allie can one day, get you to take a bite of a hamburger, man?
So I never had a burger. First, I'm not gonna blame my parents, but they never put one in front of me when I was a kid. And so when I was growing up, when we went to
So has
McDonald's,
Jamal had a burger?
Jamal, he loves burgers.
And see that I don't
I
even get it.
Well, because I don't like I like the patty, but I don't like all the other stuff individually, like the tomatoes and
Well, just
different
get a
stuff.
hamburger. Don't get a cheat. Just get a hamburger. Nothing on it. Just do that. Just
Tony,
try it.
I've heard that so much,
Just try it
and
for the people, man. The people.
I told y'all earlier I don't like being told what to do. So now at this point in my
We're
life,
asking you. We're not.
at this,
Nobody's telling you. We're
but
asking.
but
We're begging.
at
We're
this point
pleading.
at this point in my life, I'm stubborn as well. And now it's just a conversation. Like if I don't know someone, if I say, hey, I've never eaten a burger before, now we talking like we've been best friends forever. And so it's kind of an icebreaker for me now, to where I don't feel like I missed anything because I haven't had it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great icebreaker. But I'm glad you admitted. Like now, there is some ego
Oh,
and
it's definitely, yep,
stubbornness in it for
yep.
you. And
I still
so
have my flaws as well.
So
Still have my flaws as well.
you wouldn't be human if you didn't. So I appreciate that, man. So we're gonna slide to fatherhood just a little bit.
Mm,
And so as you know, you're preparing to become a father, which is a role in which you've never had ever. And I don't know if you're reading any books. I'm sure you're talking to dads and different things, asking questions about their different experiences. But also understand that your experience is going to be different because your child is going to be completely different than theirs. Um, and so I just have a few questions
right.
about fatherhood. So, what is your biggest fear that you have going into fatherhood?
To be honest, a lot of people don't talk about this a lot. But honestly, my biggest fear is, this is full transparency, is that my child will die on my hands, like when they're a kid. I don't know why that's a big thing. I'm very forgetful, and
Whew,
so my big yeah
hey,
that's my biggest
that's
fear, is that something happens and like they fall, especially when they're like super small, like months old or like a year or two old. Like I'm very nervous about that.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this: in my 6.5 months of fatherhood, and I learned this right before, and I've heard it. I've heard it before, but when you're an uncle, when you're a goddad or a cousin or something, you're very careful with, you know. But what they taught me is that babies are a lot stronger and sturdier than we give them credit for. But at the same time, I get it. Um,
Yeah.
and so I feel you. So the second question is, what are you looking forward to most about being a father?
I'm looking forward to watching them develop. And what I mean by that is I've had so many experiences to where I've watched like my close friends children from the time that they're two until now one of them 8 years old, and I've seen the development. I've played a small part in that, and I've seen like some of the things that I've say like make a difference. But for me to have someone with me 24 hours a day all the time, and to be able to impart wisdom and impart knowledge and kind of help them along the way and see their development from the time that they were born until the time where God calls one of us home. Like I'm so excited about that.
Got you, man. Got you. And that's some of, like you said, that's some of the things that I enjoyed and kind of look forward to as well, man. I think you're gonna be a great father, man. And so the last question that I have about fatherhood is, what is the number one lesson that you would give to your son and to your daughter? This number one. I know there's a lot, but I just want to know the number one for each of those children, your son and your daughter.
Okay, I'm gonna say I know you said one, but the first one you got God first. That's number one. So I'm gonna say that. Boom.
I got
And
a.
then, so
I
that's why
I under, I
I'm gonna say that
understand.
right
Not
there.
not a people understand that. Hey,
Yeah,
he's really, he is who he said. Faith is number
yeah.
one, but of course,
Okay,
outside
that
one A or one
okay.
B.
Um, woo, I was not expecting that question. That's a good one. The one piece of advice I would give,
And is this
it would,
advice for the son or the daughter?
I think it would be for both.
Okay.
Um, I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is just being genuine in all your interactions. I've learned that over time that when you're genuine, people are naturally going to enjoy number one being around you. They're going to enjoy just being with you and having you in their presence, and they don't mind showing favor towards you. And so when you're genuine, you are who you say you are. That makes a big difference. And I feel as though if you find people that are for you and are not fake as well, that you will not go without if you're genuine, because you'll be genuine. They will reciprocate that genuine love and hospitality and care for you as well. So I think being genuine is huge.
Okay, got you. And that works both ways. So that makes, you can tell that to teach it to your son or your
Mm-hmm.
daughter. So okay. So as we get ready to wrap it up, man, I just want to, give a little rapid fire questions. They'll be fun. Some may make you think. But again, I know you pretty well. But this will give, some people really to get a chance to know you as well. So I'm gonna shoot them out, and you give your best answer, man. And so, uh, what was your first job?
My first job, my first official job was working here at SMU in the housing department. That's actually where I met you,
Mhm.
Tony, about what 4 or 5 years ago. But technically, if you want to say first job, technically if you want to say first job, I worked at a fireworks stand for 3 days and did that. So just depends on
Okay,
which way you want to go.
got you. Favorite food?
Oh, hot wings all day long.
Hot wings.
Hot
Okay,
wings. Either liver
Salsa,
and
no
blue.
salsa, no sauce. Dipping sauce or no dipping sauce?
Oh, no dipping sauce because you already got the sauce. I don't need ranch, any of that. Just give me a nice buffalo wing. I'm good. I'm great.
Okay. Favorite color?
Blue.
Favorite number?
7.
Favorite person?
My wife.
Favorite professional athlete?
LeBron James. Not even close.
Favorite restaurant?
Ooh, okay. Maybe pause there for a second. Favorite restaurant?
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm gonna say Thibodeau's. I'm gonna say
Okay.
Thibodeau's is actually.
Thibodeau's.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite I guess artist, musical artist.
J. Cole
J. Cole, okay. Uh your first car.
was a
What type? The
2002
make and model.
2002 Toyota Corolla. It was red.
Okay. Your favorite teacher.
And we're talking about in school.
K through 12.
K through 12. Oh, my favorite teacher. Um, if my dad's listening, I'm gonna say him. Outside of that, man, my favorite teacher. I don't even know who my teachers were.
Oh Lord.
um,
Hope none of them listening.
I know. No, I mean, my favorite teacher. Probably who did I learn the most from? My Coach Johnny Johnson. He was in my wedding. Duh.
Okay. Favorite professor.
Oh, people gonna get mad at me. He's trying to get me in trouble. Um, I'm gonna have to say Dr. Kirsten Ferguson though, in my master's program.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
but I'm gonna have to put David Birch. I'm gonna have to say David Bertrand too, because he was close. Both of them were very close, but Dr. Kirsten
Okay.
Ferguson,
We have a 1A, 1B.
yeah,
Okay. Um,
but
okay, cool. And so now these is really gonna be rapid fire. I'm gonna say it's gonna be a little round of this or that, and we'll go from there.
okay.
So coffee or tea?
I don't
Rapid
drink.
fire means as fast as you
I
can.
don't drink either one, so I'm gonna say tea,
Okay, coffee, tea, or Gatorade?
Gatorade, all day long.
Okay, sweet or sour?
Sweet
City or beach?
city.
Book or movie?
Ooh, I know I just wrote a book, but I say I go movie. I'm sorry.
Okay, a night in or a night out?
In
Dog or cat?
dog
Pizza or pasta?
pizza.
Snickers or Skittles?
Ooh, purple Skittles. I gotta go Skittles. Purple Skittles are
Okay,
fire.
okay. Starburst or M&Ms?
Starburst.
Okay. ACC,
SEC.
SEC.
SEC all day long.
I figured I ended on one that I knew the answer to, and we could I guess agreeably disagree. But man, that's all I got for you, man. I thank you for again trusting me to to really take the people inside of not just our friendship, but your life as you start this endeavor really to help help others, man. And I know you're going to touch thousands of lives, man. And so again, like I said,
Yeah.
I'm just grateful, privileged, and humbled.
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to the continued success and great things that you're going to do to impact everybody, man.
Yeah.
And so much love to you,
Yeah.
man.
Thank you so much, T, for doing this. You did a great job. Um, man, just for those who don't know, Tony means so much to me. Outside of my wife, he knows me the most. And so that's why I felt like it was fitting for him to do this. I think he did a tremendous job. I'm so thankful for our friendship. I'm thankful for my godson and your wife as well, Elodie. You have impacted me tremendously. So you are the only person who I feel like should have done this. So I'm so thankful for you. And for those who don't know, I'm gonna give a quick plug for Tony. He actually started a business as well, where he helps professionals with resumes, cover letters. You want to give the people, this is your time right now to give a quick snippet because he's helped me with my resume and my cover letter and for helping me with interviews, and he's transitioning to doing that full time as well. And I will tell you, every single person who's looked at my information and my materials, I said it's been phenomenal, and it's only because of T. So T,
Well, man,
let's go.
I appreciate it, man. And so, yes, recently earlier this year, man, I opened or started the job experience because especially in the midst of COVID-19 and understanding that the job search process within itself can be deflating because you spend so much time and effort to ensure your job materials are just excellent and just right, but you never quite land the job. And so, I wanted to do something just to help people take that time of stress away from them in one area and just really be able to work with them. And so I offer all types of services that will make sure that your search process is more efficient, less stressful, and overall just a great experience. And so hopefully you trust me with that, and so your next job experience can begin here. And so you want to check us out. The website, it's
We'll put it at the
thejobexperience.org.
bottom. We'll put it in the link. We'll put it in the description.
Okay,
And YouTube. We'll
cool.
put it down there and
Yeah,
make sure
and
that yeah.
got you. And I give them all the social media handles as well. So I appreciate that, Jay. And like I said, I'm looking forward to helping anybody that I can.
Yeah, for sure. And one day we're gonna flip this around because Tony has a great story as well with him being a student athlete and everything like that. But we'll get that going down the line, T.
Yeah, all right, man. Sounds good, man. Just tell me the day, the time, and the place, and I'm there, man.
Perfect. Hey,
So
Tony, I appreciate you. We appreciate y'all for listening. Spread this to our coaches, parents, student athletes. Subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. We thank you. We love you. If you want to reach out, all of our information will be down below. We'll see y'all next week.
peace.